What's up, guys? Rick here with your DFS preview for this week's Fortinet Championship. We are back, baby. Let's go. Okay, we've got the Ryder Cup coming up in 2 weeks. There's a ton of fall events. Before you know it, it's going to be January, and the Tournament of Champions, which is no longer the Tournament of Champions, is going to be going on. There's just a lot of golf going on around the world all the time. I've made some updates to RickRunGood.com. I'll show you those, but we are going to attack this field with data, with analytics, with a little bit of logic and reason, and we're going to do our best to find great plays, bad plays, everything else in between. I've been waiting a long time. It feels like an eternity, even though it's only been 2 weeks. Let's get into it. This is my website, RickRunGood.com. Everything you see will be from my website. I will point out the new stuff. It's a giant database for golf betting and fantasy. A couple of new things, and then more that I'll roll out over the course of the next couple of weeks, always trying to make as many improvements as possible. The Silverado Resort and Spa, the North Course. Okay, so what do we know about this golf course, and what does the math say? Well, you look at the regression model. So this is a way that I look at all the stats for every single golf course and rank them against one another. And there's not a lot that stands out here, right? There's not a huge outlier skill set. There is not anything that is drastically different than the tour average. There's not a lot to go off of here. But here's what I can tell you about this golf course. And you're going to hear a couple of things, I assume. Very narrow fairways. However you want to look at this, whether it's width at 300 yards, whether it is, literally just acreage of fairway, they're small fairways. Now, that does not stop anybody from yanking driver because the rough is not very penal, right? So you're still going to see fairway percentages are going to look like my fairway percentages, right? Like 45% or something like that. But it's because there's really not a penalty for missing the fairway. Let me show you something. And this is kind of the stuff that I work on for some players or some agents or managers or whatever. I'll give you a glimpse out of here. Let me pull up something real quick. So this is just very, very simple. This is just hole number one at Silverado at the North Course. And actually, I guess it's not hole number one anymore because they did change the routing, which is super annoying. So I don't even know if this is hole number one anymore, but this is hole number one from last year, but the routing is different this year. So basically what you see here is the shot link data and the dispersion of all the tee shots, and they're all over the yard, right? And that's kind of by design, because if you play out of the fairway, you're obviously getting a reward for playing out of the fairway, but it's not very big. It's 0.12 strokes to the scoring average is what you gain if you play out of the fairway. The thing is, though, if you play out of the rough, it's not that big of a loss. The right rough is just 0.1 stroke. The left rough is even less than that, 0.07. It's the smallest. Hole number one, or it used to be hole number one, has the second smallest missed fairway penalty on this golf course, right? So right out of the gate, you're kind of allowed to spray it, and you'll see a lot of this all over the property. So there's just not enough incentive to be super dialed into fairways to lay back or anything like that, because you can just bomb it up there and try to hit it as far as possible. Now, what this ends up creating, and you'll see on the right-hand side is the second shots into the green. What this ends up creating is actually a larger missed penalty, or a larger penalty for missed greens. And the reason for that is, you're hitting a short iron in. So if you miss a green with a wedge or a short iron, and you miss the green anyway, you're going to give up some percentage of strokes or some number of strokes to the field. But if you do that with a on this golf course with a short iron or a wedge in hand, it is even more of a penalty. So that left greenside bunker on number one is actually one of the worst places you can be on the golf course. You're losing 0.8 strokes to the field, and especially when you get those pin locations that are on the left-hand side. So what I'm getting at here is basically what Silverado is going to allow you to do. And this is just obviously just one hole, but you'll see this all over the place. Inaccurate bombers who can dial up their wedges that's a good combination, right? Because their inaccuracy is not as penalized here as it is at other places on the PGA Tour schedule. And then because they're able to bomb it, they're hitting a lot of wedges and short irons into these greens. And if they can separate themselves there, it is actually a larger separation than some of the other PGA Tour stops that you can get. So that is kind of the type of golfer that will get a better course fit, will be able to look at this golf course and say, wow, this is statistically better for me than a lot of other places on the schedule. Doesn't mean they're going to play well, and doesn't mean that they all of a sudden become great. It's just a better spot for them. So going back, and you'll see, I show you the correlated stats and the good stats, but I put every other stat over here on the left-hand side, and you'll see, like, not all of these are great stats, but like, look at what some of the higher ranked stats are. Approaches from 125 to 150 from the rough. Yeah, that kind of passes the sniff test. Have a wedge in from the rough. I get that. That makes sense. I mean, obviously it's not a great stat because it's a smaller sample size and all that stuff, but that makes sense to me. Longest drives is 15th, right? Total driving efficiency is 13th. That also includes driving distance as well. Approaches from 50 to 75, that's 17th, right? So you're starting to see, and again, I mean, even these are top 20 stats. Approaches from inside 100 yards from the rough, 175 to 200 from the rough. It's just playing out of the rough is a lot more common here. As it should be. Now, what I did do is I adjusted this calculation a little bit for adjusted fit. So basically what happens here is all the values from up top, where this golf course ranks amongst all the other PGA Tour stops, I then take the stats for those players, and you can put in any number of rounds that you want, 24, 36, 5, 100, whatever you want, I don't care. And it calculates based on how they've played in those rounds, what kind of fit this is for them, whether they play on this golf course or not. So I've adjusted this. So I made this a little more, I'm always kind of improving these calculations. I think this is a little bit easier to understand. And basically, it is mimicking strokes gained. So the way to read this now, instead of Max Homa being like a 4 in adjusted fit, he's a 0.53, and that's the best that we have in this field right now for 36 rounds. And that's basically saying he is a half a shot better of a fit at this golf course than average. Okay. So I wanted to kind of mimic it. I thought it was a little bit easier to understand doing the calculation in that way. And that's a pretty big gap. Now, Max Homa's won here each of the last 2 years, but that does not necessarily mean he's going to be a great course fit. Now, there is a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy in this, but it is still impressive when you get a guy who has both course history and course fit. Max Homa does both of those things. Peter Quest is number 2. Eric Cole is number 3. Eric Cole kind of makes sense, right? What does Eric Cole do poorly? He misses a lot of fairways. Okay, doesn't matter here. What does he do really well? Second shot and putting. Great. Those are both going to be important this week. So again, that's basically him getting a 0.3 stroke per round boost on this golf course, if that makes sense. Dylan Wu, Steven Yeager, Garrick Higgo, Doug Gim. I'll tell you what, we've been tracking Garrick Higgo. I'll talk about Garrick Higgo more, and the play that he has had since splitting with his swing coach. I believe it was Claude Harmon about 6 months ago, and the way that he's been hitting it since then. This is probably one of the better courses for him, right? He's going to be able to spray it off the tee without any regard. He's very long. He can kind of get dialed in. He's got a lot of upside. We'll talk about him a lot more, but I like the way that this calculation looks now. I think it's a lot easier to consume. The data is still sound. The data is still strong. We have a lot of data from Silverado, and yeah, I'm excited for this one. I'll have to figure out the routing. Not that it really matters. We're still going to play the same 18 holes, but they did flip the routing for this year. Okay. I love it. Let's go to the cheat sheet. Oh, the cheat sheet. Doesn't it feel so darn good to see this thing? It really, really does. So 4 golfers over $10,000 led, no surprise, by Max Homa at $11,000. Justin Thomas, 10.5. Steven Yeager, 10.2, and Cam Davis, 10.1. Pretty decent job there on the pricing. Let's talk about these guys. And I think, we have to kind of address the Ryder Cup situation. If this was a different sport, I think there'd be a lot of like, oh, this is a look ahead spot, right? I mean, these guys just got back from Rome for their practice Sunday night and are likely going right back after this tournament. So I don't know. I mean, Max Homa, obviously, they want to play well. They want to contend, but aren't there bigger things in play here? I know Homa's going for a three-peat. Justin Thomas just trying to find anything he can get, but a little bit awkward. But that's a narrative. Let's talk about the data real quick. You look at Max Homa, it is going to be very difficult to argue that he is anything but the best player in this field. He's playing great golf. If you go to the power rankings, which, by the way, there's now a couple of different additions to the power rankings. I'll show you those in a second. Last 36 rounds, everybody in this field, there's only 2 golfers gaining over 1 stroke per round. Max Homa is at 1.27. He's by far the best player in this field. You look at how he's doing it. He's doing it consistently across the board, and he is your back-to-back champion. So there is just no way to frame this other than Max Homa is the best player in this field, and if you can get access to him, you probably should do your best to do that. The play at the end of last season was great. He got on this run after the Travelers Championship in which he rattled off top 25 finishes, a bunch of top 10s, including T6, T5, and T9 in the 3 playoff events. You're going to be hard-pressed to find anybody who's got the form, who's got the fit, who's got the history here than Max Homa. Justin Thomas, on the other hand, I'm going to write about this in my newsletter, which you can, it's 100% free. You can click the link in the description. It's RickRunGood.com/newsletter. Subscribe to that. It'll come out probably Tuesday afternoon at some point, maybe Wednesday morning. But the thing that I find the big issue with Justin Thomas is not necessarily the putter. He's always been a bad putter, and he continues to be a bad putter. I worry more about this. The fact that he has been a below average tour player on approach, which he used to be one of the best approach players in the world, one of the best ball strikers in the world. So now he's got 5 consecutive events, which he's lost strokes on approach. He's lost there in 7 of his last 9. That is a pretty big concern. And to me, that's the one thing that is driving a lot of these bad results and the fact that he ends up missing the playoffs for the first time in his career and his fall to 24th in the world and all that stuff. So to me, I don't really care that he's a bad putter. I mean, that's just always been the case. I care about the second shot, and that is a little bit worrisome about this place. I will also say this, though. If you, I'm unlikely to put a significant investment in on Justin Thomas this week. I just think that I want to see at least some sign of life. I want to see if he gives a crap about this tournament or if he's just trying to get back to Rome. Did he promise Captain Zach Johnson, no, I'll play the Fortinet. If you pick me as a captain, I'll try to play my way in. I don't know. But if you opted to try to be early on Justin Thomas, this is not the worst spot in the world, right? We know he's been tinkering with a swing. Did he find something? We know that, hey, he could probably silence a lot of critics if he went out and won this golf tournament. But the thing that I care about statistically is this right here. Even in a year where he was 42nd on approach and much worse in the second half of the year, he was still very, very good with his wedges, right? 11th from 100 to 125, 125 to 150, he was 25th. From 50 to 125, he was 24th. That will be a pretty big component of play this week at Silverado. And if you look at his results at this event, they're glowing. 3 straight top 8s, but that's 2015, 2016, 2019. I think there's, listen, he's playing this out of necessity, not necessarily because he wants to be here. But I think if there was a spot to be early on, this is it. I'm unlikely to get there. But if you're willing to take on that risk, maybe you place a bet on him. I mean, the number's pretty bad, but that's up to you. It's not a bad spot to be there. Jaeger and Cam Davis, I think these are 2 interesting guys. I was hoping for a little bit of a discount. I'm pretty surprised that I think DraftKings got this right as far as who are players 3 and 4 in this field. I was hoping that they were going to kind of be down in the Bo Hostler, JJ Spawn area, but to no luck. Steven Jaeger, to me, has been basically the most underrated golfer on tour for the last year. He's in the midst of 13 consecutive cuts made in a row. His season ended with a T20 in Memphis, a T14 at the Wyndham, a T30 at the 3M. I mean, he just piles up these top 30s, these top 25 finishes. The ball striking is phenomenal. He's great around the green. He's a good putter. There is nothing but positive takeaways here from the stat profile of Steven Jaeger. Now he gets a very weak field that he can try to take advantage of. And I think that he's certainly found his footing on this tour. You're seeing that in the results, and I'm pretty excited about the year to come. Cam Davis is going to lead us off in terms of guys that are going to get a big benefit from Silverado and the stat profile that you're expecting to see around this place, right? We already talked a little bit about, Garrick Higo and what he does well and what he doesn't do well and why that's going to translate to Silverado. And Cam Davis is kind of similar, right? What is Cam Davis, if I'm looking for inaccurate bombers who can dial in their wedges, that is Cam Davis, is it not? A guy who we've seen get to the top of leaderboards. I'm going to sneeze, excuse me. Apologies there, who, T10, T7, T6 in 3 of his last 4 starts. He makes this great run at the end of last season. Again, you look at some of these wedge buckets, which are not perfect, but 125 to 150, he's 25th, 150 to 175, he's 14th, 75 to 100, he's 33rd, 50 to 75, 44th. I mean, you see it all over the place. This is kind of a prototypical spot for him. So really interested to see if he's able to kind of take what should be a good fit, what should be a good advantage for him, and take advantage of that. So the way that I look at the top here, if you can afford to get to Homa, that's fine. I like Jaeger. I like Cam Davis. If we get to Wednesday, because Wednesday, the live chat, 3 p.m. Eastern time, Rick Run Good YouTube channel, we're doing it. We'll have a much better idea of what the projected ownership is going to be, and we'll have an idea of where everyone is going. If Justin Thomas checks in at 6% owned, he's not going to, but if he were, I'd probably move all my money there, right? So we'll see what the industry does. But the way that I see it right now, Homa is a clear 1. Jaeger and Davis, I think, are interesting. Davis from a course fit perspective, and Jaeger just from an overall consistency perspective. Before we get to the 9K range, I don't want to forget, I did remember to put the splash contest up again this week. It was completely my fault for the Tour Championship. I screwed that up. So it is basically you just going in. It's a $15 buy-in. It's capped at 200. It's a very top-heavy payout. You pick 6 golfers, and it's basically done on a strokes to par basis. So that's the scoring. So you pick tiers. Tier 1 is Max Homa, Sahith, Andrew Putnam, et cetera, et cetera. You go through the tiers, you pick your golfers, and you lock and load. So you can enter 3 times. It's fun. It's a good way for us to kind of connect, and I remembered to do it this week. So the link for that is in the description if you want to go and hop into that contest and see if you can turn your $15 into whatever it was, a couple hundred, maybe 1,000 or something like that for the winner. Okay. 9K range here. So this is where things start to get a little bit more intriguing. Sahith did not have, he played better at the St. Jude. He played better at the BMW, but he did not have the end of the season that he was looking for, right? He had that really long cut streak that was ended. And then he missed like 3 or 4 consecutive cuts, and it kind of got ugly, 3 in a row right there. And it was a lot of ball striking troubles, but he started to figure it out a little bit around Olympia Field. So this is where I think someone like Sahith could be a little bit of a trap, because he is certainly an inaccurate bomber, right? Sprays it all over the yard. That's going to be fine here. But I worry about the second shot, and I worry about those wedge buckets and how he is not really very good there. I would prefer him in the middle irons to long irons. Some of these events where, like Phoenix is probably a pretty decent spot for him, where you get asked a bunch of different questions, not the same question over and over and over again. And he doesn't necessarily have a great answer to the question that is being asked of him over and over and over again. So that feels a little bit trappy, because I think people are going to say, oh, wow, well, you can spray it all over the yard. That's true, but I'm not sure this is the great fit for him. Eric Cole, we already saw, on that course fit. Again, the thing that he does the worst is play out of the fairway. Well, it doesn't matter this week. Then the second shot's great. The putter can get hot. He's a little bit more volatile. You see some high-end results from him. And even though he makes a lot of cuts, capable of finishing 60th, capable of finishing 6th. So within that kind of upper half of outcomes for him, he's usually going to be in the upper half of results, but he can still be very volatile within that. So, capable of losing 3 shots around the green, that's never good. I think he's good, not great for this week. The guy that probably has me most excited is Beau Hossler here. Hossler is sneaky long. I feel like I say that a lot, but people don't necessarily realize that. And you look at his off the tee numbers. I mean, he has basically gained off the tee every event dating back to Mexico. He lost less than a quarter of a stroke at Rocket Mortgage. He lost a half a stroke at Barracuda. But other than that, he is a gainer. And if you look at just terms of driving distance, all drives, he's 49th, which, in this field, it's going to be much, much better than that. And when you get Beau with wedge in hand, the closer the better. Like that 100 yards and in, he's really good. That is where we've seen him find a little bit of success. And you look at what he's done around here, makes sense. 3 straight top 25s in a row. So this is the one that I think is getting me the most excited. Drives it well. He's gained on approach, basically multiple strokes in 4 out of his last 6. The putter is always a strength of his. Good course history. That kind of makes sense for me. I think people will look at Andrew Putnam, the way that he ended his year. I want to dive a little bit deeper into that, but he's got 3 straight decent finishes around this place. But let's look at Putnam a little bit and see how he's doing it. See if there's any red flags here or if this is something that could be quite positive. Well, it's not bad, right? He's gained, the approach numbers are great. He does lose off the tee because he is not very long. He is accurate though. So that's kind of the worry here, right? Is, the thing that he's worse at than everybody else does not necessarily give him a big advantage here. So that's a little bit worrisome. Now he's probably still the 12th best player in this field or something like that. So you could see him finish inside the top 25, but do I see a path to Putnam winning this golf tournament? Not particularly. Probably means that he wins it now, but I don't think this is necessarily a great high upside finish place for him. As we get into the 8K range, I'll circle back here on the power rankings and show you what's new. So continue to have strokes gained, weighted strokes gained, the fantasy stuff. The strokes gained distribution is going to look a little bit different. So you can get the strokes gained total distribution, how often a golfer gains 0 strokes to the field, 1 or more, 2 or more, all the way up to 5 or more. But you can also now do this by breaking it down, right? So you can say off the tee. And you can look at this and say, oh, wow, Garrick Higo gains a stroke off the tee, 1 or more in half of his last 36 rounds. Lucas Herbert, Kevin Yu, Cam Champ up there as big time gainers. There's Beau Hossler. Lucas Herbert is actually in this $8,000 range. And you can do it for a strokes gained approach and around the green and putting and tee to green and all this other stuff. So you could say, go get me high-end upside tee to green players. So go to tee to green, look for 2 or more strokes per round, and go get Akshay. Go get Doug Gim, which we'll talk about Doug Gim. These would be really good, probably like high upside, whether they're long shots, whether they're showdown guys. This is what you'd generally be looking for. The other thing to see here is the rolling numbers, which show you just very quickly the ranks or the averages for last 12, 24, 36, 50, 100 rounds, or you can put in your own number here. So if you wanted to say, okay, well, actually give me the last 18 rounds, that'll show up in the last X column. And then you can compare that to every other, category that I've already loaded in there for you. So the way that this reads is Steven Yeager is in the last 100 rounds, 3rd, 2nd in last 50, 4th in last 36, 2nd in last 24, 7th in last 12, and in last X, which is mine, 18 rounds, 2nd. So you can do this for, any number of rounds that you want, easy to see, and then you can click over and see it as averages as well if you don't want to see it as ranks. That's available to you. So a couple of new items there that I think are pretty snazzy. So that 8K range, we saw, Herbert, very good driver of the golf ball. We saw Akshay, who is, super high upside from tee to green. But the guys that are most exciting to me in the 8K range, first off, it's Doug Gim at $8,000 flat. I will likely bet Doug Gim. By the time this video goes live, I will probably have a bet in on Doug Gim. And what I like is that after this prolonged slump, he has gotten back to a little bit of his DNA, which is being a really good ball striker. And he's now gained 3 or more shots off the tee in each of his last 2. He has done that feat 5 times in the last 8. The ball striking, the approach numbers are back to being positive in 7 of his last 8. He is still capable of hemorrhaging a ton of strokes on and around the greens, but that's kind of what you get here for $8,000. And it is a series of results, basically a bunch of top 25s in the last 8. He missed 1 cut. It was at the Scottish Open. Don't care about that. Link style golf. Come back here and play a little bit more traditional style of PGA Tour play. This is really good to see out of Doug Ghim. Flat $8,000. I think that's a pretty good price. You know, Ches Reavie's interesting because we get a lot of, we've got a lot of really good history around Silverado, right? Like we've played here a ton. So if you go and just look up everybody in this field at Silverado, at the North Course, and you see who has the best course history, nobody has played as well in as many rounds as Ches Reavie has. 1.22 over 34 rounds. That's a lot. To put that into perspective, Max Homa's at 22 rounds, 0.78. He has 2 wins because the other stuff isn't all that good. He had 2 60th place finishes, a missed cut, and a 39th before snapping off and finding those victories. But Reavie has been missed the cut last year. But other than that, it was all top 33 finishes for 7 consecutive years, highlighted by the T3 in 2020. So what is he doing leading into this event? Is the form good enough to consider this? And I would say the answer is yes-ish. The good is we're seeing the great ball striking, the great approach play, right? 8.75 in Detroit, 4.8 at Deer Run, generally positive dating back towards the entire year. The one concern would be that he's lost strokes putting in 5 straight after having this really good run of putting numbers from the Texas Open to the Travelers Championship. Probably something that I should have discussed earlier. I think that when you get any amount of break, and we're going to talk about this in January as well, but even a 2-week break, or if you are Ches, who did not make the playoffs, he has been off for over a month. I generally reset a lot of these guys back to their long-term numbers. The idea that week in, week out, there's a lot of stuff happening. You might not be able to get with your coach. You might be injured. You might be tired. Everybody gets a chance to take a breath, go back, get in the sim, get on video, work with their instructor, et cetera, and most guys start to get back to their baseline. So if you do that, so if you just go to strokes gained, and I mean, you could call it last 50, last 100 rounds, let's split the difference and call it 75 rounds with a minimum of 50 rounds across the PGA Tour, European Tour, Korn Ferry Tour. Where does Reavie start to pop up here? He's here. He is the 38th best player in this field, but he's one of the best approach players in this field. Half a stroke gain per round, 0.52. It's behind only a few guys: Akshay, Mark Hubbard, Eric Cole. And of those guys, there's not a lot of great putter. I mean, Reavie's a positive putter. So if we can get a regression back to the mean where he gets back to the putting numbers, continues the good ball striking, gets a good course history, or goes back to a place he has good course history, that is about as much as you can ask for $8,500. Also, if you look at the trends tool here, those 2 guys that I pointed out, Ghim and Reavie, are the 2 guys in the 8K range who are playing most over their 100 round baseline right now, which is no real surprise. And you look at how they're doing it. Ghim is actually losing putting to himself, which is unbelievable. And he's doing it all via tee to green numbers. That's very optimistic. Reavie does get a little bit of a benefit. There's enough rounds of the good putting where he is beating his own baseline there. But if you look at this, if you look at the breakout chart and kind of see the guys that are statistically on the verge of a breakout. I mean, look at Doug Ghim here. Very much up in the unlucky putting category, right? Which is crazy to think, and just ball striking the heck out of it. So that's an interesting one. You see Ches Reavie still in the positive quadrant here. You want to be in this upper left. If you're not going to be in the upper left, be in the upper right. If you're not going to be in those 2, you're probably in a little bit of a world of hurt coming up here. The 7K range is really fascinating. So, Peter Quest showed up on that course fit model. And if we just kind of look at what he's done, and it's a very, very small sample size. Remember, he got special temporary membership status through the end of the year. And now I think he's got his full card via that. And we have seen real high upside stuff statistically from Peter. And there's this 5-event stretch here where he was a very good approach player. There was the final 2 events where he putted the lights out. The upside comes from marrying that, right? Which is kind of what we saw here at Rocket Mortgage. And I will tell you, as far as comps go, Detroit Golf Club is another golf course that you can kind of just spray it very much off the tee without regard for accuracy and kind of turn it into a approach and putting contest. So I think there are some realistic reasons of why Quest has shown up statistically, but we got to get that marriage of a couple of good high upside skill sets on the same week. Higo, who I've been teasing and alluding to consistently since I saw that he was in the field, has got to have our attention, right? So he was miserable for a long time, splits with his swing coach. I want to say that was about, I think I heard it at Torrey, so maybe it's been almost a year. Yeah, it was kind of right after this, like 4 out of 5 cuts, starts playing a lot better, makes more cuts. Then we start getting the statistical rebound in which he's now driving it. I mean, the guy he bombs it very, very. I mean, there are not many guys who can gain 4, 5, 6 strokes off the tee like Higo can. He's got to be a positive approach player, which is a little bit of a concern. And then he's putted a lot better. And again, this is just got to be one of the best fits for him. It just has to be. Whether he can put it together or not, it's got to be a good fit for him. Similar to Pendrith, similar to Cam Champ, these guys that are going to yoke it all over the yard and get away with it. Like, this is a better spot for him. Doesn't necessarily make me super excited for those guys, but that's the fit. And then Higo's, I mean, he's still so young, still so talented. The upside's been unbelievable. I think we're going to get something good this week. If we are resetting everybody back to that longer term baseline, the man who continues to be disrespected by the pricing shows up again. Dylan Wu, $7,600. So this is last 75 rounds. Again, that's about, to put that in perspective, it's about 9 months worth of rounds for these guys. Scotty Scheffler played exactly 100 rounds last season. So I think Victor was at 94, 96 or something like that. So if 100 rounds is a year, 50 is about 6 months, 75 is about 9 months. Homa's the best player. No surprise. Eric Cole, number 2. Not really that big of a surprise. Akshay 3, then Dylan Wu. And Dylan Wu's the only guy priced in the $7,000 range there. So you get Dylan Wu, who gains across the board, perpetually mispriced, $7,600. The next 7K guy that you find is Kevin Yu. He ranks 9th during that period. The problem for him is he is an exaggerated team no putt guy. I mean, he is just phenomenal off the tee, gives most of it back with the putter, if not more than most of it. He's at $7,400. Then you get a run of 7K guys down here that round out like the top 20, which would be Sam Ryder at 16th, Sam Stevens at 17th, Nate Lashley 18, Aaron Baddeley 19. I want to do a look at Sam Stevens here for a little bit because again, there's some of these guys that are young, that are kind of built for the modern game, that are going to start taking the next step or two. And I love the way that Sam Stevens drives it, though I can't say I'm super excited about the rest of his game. Little bit concerning. Yeah, might have to see a little bit more out of Sam Stevens here before we're investing our hard-earned American dollars. The thing that was interesting about Aaron Baddeley is that he was one of the top 20 players in the last 75 rounds, and he has good history around here. So he's got, I mean, he's played here a ton, but last 5 years, 36th or better in 4 of them, and a T4 in 2018. He's very short off the tee. I guess that's okay. I mean, this is it's a short par 72. It's not long. So it's not like he's losing I mean, he loses because he's shorter than everybody else and he's more inaccurate than everybody else. At this golf course, I wonder if that's even a problem. It's not good, obviously. There are some wedges. I mean, 18th from 50 to 175, 60th from 75 to 100, 25th from 125 to 150. See, this is why the buckets can kind of be problematic, because he's 140th from 100 to 125. It's not like he doesn't know how to hit those shots. It's just probably kind of a sample size little issue and all that stuff. This is not, it's not the end of the world. I mean, he could even get to these fives, I imagine. The fives are pretty reachable for everybody. Par 5 scoring is where he struggles because he's short. I'm lukewarm, okay? Let's call it a 6 out of 10. Not going to sprint to get him into every single lineup. Probably not going to bet him, but I understand it, and there is probably enough good to outweigh the bad. The 6K range, I'm probably going to let the model do a lot of work here, but I just want to see if anybody jumps off the screen. Sung-Yul No is here. Sung-Yul No has gotten much longer off the tee. He's added a lot of club head speed. He is also in the midst of a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 event cut streak. None of them are particularly great finishes. T19 in a team event in Zurich is his best finish. But he's only 6,900. You know, this is a weak field. If he makes the cut, he finishes 40th. Or can you get away with that? Does he have enough upside? I don't know. It's not great, but I think it is better than some of these other guys. Just kind of looking through the rest of this as well. Man, it's pretty ugly. Let's look at who's the first long-term. Yeah, man, the 6K is really tough. So the first 6K guy in terms of long-term strokes gained, 75 rounds, is Zach Blair. He's 42nd in this field. He's gaining 0.12. So there's not a lot of guys in the 6K range that over that period are actually better than field average, which I guess makes sense. Kevin Tway is slightly positive, and he's won here before. Boy, the sixes are really not that good. Cody Gribble, where did Cody Gribble show up? Cody Gribble, I think, is hits it far enough, pretty accurate, decent in some of the wedge buckets, I believe. Man, the 6K range is not good at all. What if we well, I could just do that in the model. So let me just look real quick here at the bottom of this range. Yeah, boy, Preston Summerhays. Wow, they even got Preston Summerhays for $6,800. No deal on the sponsor invite with the last name of Summerhays, huh? Guess you're not going to get a deal there. I'm such a buyer of Nico Echeverria, but he has not been good. He's missed a million cuts in a row, I think. Yeah, man. I mean, he goes from the win in Puerto Rico to just off the face of the earth. That's tough. I guess we can't invest in Nico this week. Yeah, here's that Cody Gribble stat profile. Pretty good wedge short iron player. He is longish. I mean, he's got a lot of club head speed, but he doesn't hit it all that far. What does that say? Doesn't find the center of the club face, needs a better smash factor. He's probably middle of the road in both driving accuracy, driving distance. Playing a little bit better, even though I guess he might just lose you 9 strokes putting. He's lost a total of 16 strokes putting in his last 8 rounds. Yikes. That's going to be a problem. All right. Well, I thought that was going to end up being better than it was. It was not. Let's see what the model has to say. So custom model, RickRunGood.com. I'll zoom in a little bit so that you guys can see. You get 100 weights. You put them on anything that you want. You choose the number of rounds. You do all that stuff. Actually, let's do 75 rounds here. But what I am going to do is I'm going to go with, so let's start with the driving. Let's say, I don't think you need to be long. I don't think you need to be accurate, but I would prefer it. And I think you get a little bit of an advantage if you are. So let's say 12 on distance, 6 on accuracy. That's all I'm going to do there. Approach play. I'm going to put, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put 10 on long-term approach. So something like strokes gained approach lasts 100. And then I'm going to double that up with a little bit of the buckets here. And we're just going to go 5 from 50 to 175, 5 from 75 to 150, 5 from 100 to 125, and 5 from 125 to 150. So it's 30 on approach. It's a lot. Don't get me wrong. Then we'll round out the around the green stuff with, again, kind of some longer term around the green, and then some longer term putting, a little bit more on putting. So around the green, I went last 50. Putting, I went last 100. I'm going to do course history. So course history for Silverado. I was blanking on the name for a second. We'll put 10 there. Then I've got 17 left. We could do short courses. Is technically a short course. Put 10 on short, 72. Par 72. It's pretty short for that. And then we're going to do our last 7 on let's do fantasy points gained. All right. My number 1 golfer is Max Homa. Yeah. All right. No surprise. So Homa 1, JT 2. Yeah. I mean, the long-term stuff helps JT, and he's still very good approach, very good wedge player. Very good on short courses. Good here. I get it if you want to try to be early on him. Todd is 3. How is that possible? Yeah, I mean, he's very good wedge player, very good putter, has had a lot of success here, has had a lot of success on short courses. Eric Cole is 4. Sahith is 5. Alex Noren is 6. Cam Davis, 7. Okay. Hubbard, 8. Montgomery, 9. Putnam, 10. Yeager's 12. That kind of stinks. Interesting. Okay, I'll save this because we can look at it again on Wednesday. So Monday, Silverado, save that. All right, well, listen, I'll mess around with this. I think there's a lot of different stuff we could do. I might do a little bit higher upside stuff. I might do one for more recent, see what we can figure it out. But it's going to be an absolute phenomenal fall. I'm excited to get to Rome, be your boots on the ground for the Ryder Cup. I'm excited for a lot of stuff. If you want to join the splash contest, do it. You should join RickRunGood.com because I'm always making improvements, and I think you'll love it. Subscribe, like, do all the things that people normally ask you to do. Much appreciated. Best of luck this week. Talk to you guys soon.